This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. Welcome to The Good Ride, where we're deeply committed to an open relationship with snowboard gear. This is the Korua Transition Finder. This is the Otto next to it, probably much more similar now with a new updated shape. And then the Cafe Racer, kind of where you go from here after this. This is Davey.
What up, people?
I rode it primarily with Burton Kendos and Union Atlas and got this in a wide variety of conditions. Davey, though, got it in a wider variety of conditions.
I did, yeah. So I was able to get it out in almost every condition. Like I got it on some brick hard icy days, some beautiful spring conditions, some summertime slush up on Mount Hood, some amazing corduroy, some knee deep powder, and some like 2-3 inch powder with some soft, not too catchy underbite.
And to give you a short summary, the Transition Finder changed this year. It has a wider tail, a more narrow nose, a very similar waist, but just a little bit narrower. And so overall it has a less tapered, less surfy feel, and it matches its name more. It's more a board that you like to launch off things with, but you still want something that is very tapered, very directional. But now it's closer to the Otto than it was before. The Otto and the Transition Finder have just a touch of overlap. If you want to leave a non-tapered board, and the next one in line from there is the Transition Finder. Then from there, the Transition Finder sits kind of in between the Cafe Racer and the Otto, because all these boards are stance angle agnostic. When you get into boards like the Dart and the Pencil and others, they really like a posy stance where all of these can shine no matter how you set them up. And so that's why all three are here. But we'll be primarily talking about the Transition Finder.
Yeah, I absolutely love the Transition Finder. I got on it last spring. Epic slushy corn day. And I love this board so much that I had to make it one of my daily drivers for this year.
And let's talk sizing. For some reason with the Transition Finder, I want to size down. For my size 9 boots, this felt a little big, this 57. But the Otto 57, that's pretty wide for me, feels fine. The Cafe Racer in a 59, that has a very wide waist, feels fine. The Dart 56, that has a very wide waist, feels fine. The Pencil, and so on and so forth, they all feel good in the appropriate size, but for this one, I just wanted to size down. I always have with the Transition Finder, even when it was more tapered, I liked the 54 better.
I actually agree with that too. I ride the 57 and I have a size 12 boot and I'm 240 pounds. And I think for all mountain conditions, not very much powder, mostly just carving and going through the park and finding side hits and stuff like that, it is the perfect size.
And when it comes to the shape, it is still very tapered and directional. I think it has close to 18 mil of taper, but that's down from 31 mil of taper before. So if you're coming from a double ender like the Otto here, or very close to it, and you go to the Transition Finder, it's going to feel very tapered. But if you're on the old Transition Finder, or if you're on any of the other Korua boards that are very tapered, very directional, it's not going to feel as back foot necessary, but it's still something you kind of lean back into throughout a turn, and it's got that kind of feel. When it comes to the camber profile, it has that directional camber where there's camber basically from the tail to a little bit past the front binding, and then a mellow bit of early rise before the nose, which makes it feel more forgiving than the Cafe Racer, which is mostly camber, has just a little bit of early rise. And it's like right there with the Otto, which has a similar camber profile. So it's more advanced to expert riders, but if you're a strong intermediate who's progressing, you might be able to pull this off, but it's not the easiest board to skid your turn when you get off your game.
Yeah. I think if you're not quite confident enough to get this board, but you want it, Just get it. You'll learn. You'll learn.
And sign the disclaimer.
Yeah.
And when it comes to flex, you can see this board's been ridden a lot, by the way. And you can see overall, it's a medium stiff flex. But between the feet, it is just straight up stiff. And then when you engage the nose, there's a lot more give, but it's still medium. And then you get down into the tail, and it's pretty stiff.
Stiff dogger in the tail.
Yeah. And on snow, I felt it was relatively easy to nose butter, but a little more work off the tail to butter. But what I really liked was the energy and pop that you got out of this ride. Even though this board felt a little big for me and I'd much rather be on the 54, this had spring to it. It just took a little work. And I think for Davey though, you have a different perspective from your specs versus mine.
For me, this board just bends and bows and flexes with ease, but it still has enough pop to really spring me out and get my fat ass in the air, and it's great. Like I really think this board.
I think that's a new sticker, fat ass air.
Yeah, fat ass airs, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this board is very springy, poppy, and dynamic. It's super fun to turn, super fun to jump with. I think it does everything exceptionally well.
Yeah, and the overall personality in all conditions, with the camber profile as well as this flex personality, just can handle rough, uneven snow like a champ. Mm-hmm. The Transition Finder Plus is lighter, is poppier, is more dynamic. It has a faster base, and I love that board when the conditions are good, but when the conditions turn, it just can't handle the chatter, the micro bumpy, uneven snow like this can. Mm-hmm. So it's a toss-up between the two to what conditions you mainly ride. But Davey and I are kind of like all conditions. We're going no matter what usually.
Rain or shine.
Yeah, so this kind of flex personality is great for us in all kinds of conditions. Powering through chunder, powering over micro bumpy snow, and just not letting that chatter come up and through. It can get a little cranky because it's stiff, but in comparison to a lot of the boards like it, it does very well.
Yeah, this board's very damp. I think it's an amazing bell-to-bell, day after day quiver killer.
Yeah, and all these boards are. When it comes to speed, this Transition Finder can bomb. It feels much more stable with this less tapered shape than it did before when it was more tapered. You could still point it with this, but now it just feels more stable between the feet, less tapered and easier to point. And the base glide is good, definitely above average. When well waxed, it does a good job, but you really feel a difference between this and let's say the Transition Finder Plus, because that has a faster base. But again, you're trading off the better base glide for better dampness.
I found that these red bases kind of eat wax like a Cookie Monster. You want wax?
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, this thing's great. I think if you want something that's going to be a straight, just hard charging race board, this probably isn't the perfect option for you. But if you want something that can charge hard, but also playful, really fun and dynamic and does everything well, this is a perfect board.
And when it comes to edge hold, I think this does a very good job. It's there's no real disruption. There's no kind of like edge hold magic that we can see, but there is something in there that helps this board grip in most conditions you want to ride really well. Even when I get surprise patches, it does well. So maybe not as good as some of the really exceptionally disrupted boards side cut wise do, but it does really well.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think if it had a little bit more of a side cut disruption, that it would actually catch a little bit too much in softer conditions.
Yeah, get too grabby. Yeah, for sure. When it comes to turn initiation and carving, this is what you get this board for, and air. These are it's just a great turning experience, a fun carver, and great air. It's very balanced. I felt a little, like my feet were a little too small for this board, but still the turning experience when you got this thing on side cut, it was slow to initiate, but when I got it on side cut, it had a pretty balanced turning radius. It could circle carve, it could make long drawn out S turns, it could make across the groomer carves, and all kinds of turns proficiently. It didn't shine in any one place, and I really liked that, but it just has this great spring out of the turn, no matter what kind of turning radius you made. And when you're really laying into it, it really rewards you. Every board in Korua's line, from the Otto, to the transition finder, to the cafe racer, to the dart, to the pencil, to the bullet train, and all these other boards, they all just carve so hard, and it's such a fun, rewarding turning experience. I could talk about this for 20 minutes, but I'll leave it to Davey from here.
Yeah, this board is definitely a soul turner. I think it's one of those boards that you get out and you start laying carves on it and you just go home stoked as hell.
Powder. If you compare this to the cafe racer, to the pencil, to the dart, they're going to be better. But it is a huge step up coming from the Otto. And let me just say, the Otto's an excellent board for powder, especially for not having any taper, for being more of an all-mountain board, kind of a one-board quiver that you can do anything with. But when you step from the Otto to the transition finder, you've got more setback on side cut and much more setback on board. This even has more setback on side cut than the old one did. It went from 20 millimeters to 25 millimeters of setback on side cut. But when you look at setback on board, there is good setback directional float. You're not totally on the tail like most Korua boards, and it doesn't emulate that totally setback off the tail, surfy kind of feel, but this has very competent, very good directional float that this could double as a powder board if you're only rocking like a two-board quiver like the Otto as your daily driver, and then your transition finder for when you want to mix it up, turn a different way, ride a different way, but also be ready for some really deep powder. This is a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think if you were going for like a free ride, freestyle powder board and you got this and you sized it up just a little bit, if you weren't planning on taking it out primarily on groomers and in the park, it would be amazing. And I think that with the ability to set back the stance all the way, when you do set it back all the way, this board floats great. Like, I'm 240, I was riding it knee-high powder, a 57, and I was floating.
Overall, I think this is just such a fun board. It's so good for getting air. It's better than the old transition finder, and I think this new shape really lit it up. Before, I liked the transition finder and recommended it to a lot of people and felt it was a good board. It was a great board. It just wasn't one of our favorites. This year, it's like a board I would love in my quiver. I'd love to own a 54. Davey took this 57 from us.
I did. I got the 57 in my quiver. I absolutely love it. I hopped on it and didn't want to give it up.
All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now, if you need advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So, thanks for watching.